We're going over system concepts, Article 38, men and women. The world is going through a transition that influences all aspects of physical reality, such as politics, media, education, work, family, finance, and religion. The root cause for this change is the internalization of qualities of male and female forces within humans. In previous generations, parents were parents, women were women, men were men, and children were children. In this generation, all these qualities are readjusting within each of us. Due to this process, both men and women are unconsciously choosing independence from each other, which in turn influences their ability to cohabitate as husband and wife, birth and raise children, and express their authentic gender identity. Instead of being dependent on the male or female partner outside of them, they are unconsciously displaying the dependence of these qualities within themselves. This is, in effect, reveals the need for the system to retain a balance, to be a whole system. And here's a quote. Number 5. Zeranpin and Malchut are called two lights, since they bestow upon the lower Olamot. It is so because the Tachtonim cannot receive from Gal, Ketel, Chochmah, and Bina. Consequently, only Zeranpin and Malchut shine upon the Tachtonim, and are therefore called lights. When emanated, they were on the same level. It means that Malchut received her Shefa from Bina, not through Zeranpin. Thus, they were both equal. Just as Zeranpin was emanated from Bina and received his Shefa from Bina, so Nukva received her Shefa from Bina. However, when Malchut is not fitting to receive from Bina, but through Zeranpin, she is then considered to be lower than Zeranpin, for the receiver is naturally below the giver. From Chapter 7, Internal Light, from Talmud HaSefirot, Part 3, by Baal HaSulam. Man, Zeranpin, and woman, Malchut, as qualities, were created equal, in that they receive their abundance on equal grounds. Just as it is written, Chochmah, wisdom, and Bina, understanding, are on equal grounds, so were Zeranpin, beauty, sun, and Malchut, kingdom, moon, on equal grounds. This is the parable of the moon and the sun, where the sun, Zeranpin, and the moon, Malchut, were created equal. But then, because Malchut desired the ability to give, but lacked that male force, the giving force that is in Zeranpin, it had to replace its desire to be independent with the desire to be dependent on Zeranpin's giving force. This is mirrored in our world, where a man and woman desire to conceive, create new life. The female's desire is dependent on the male to give life, and in this process, the female and male become equal in the giving qualities, the creation of new life. This reflects the beginning preparation for the return to equal and full abundance once again. And here's a quote. This is so because prior to the complete redemption, there were redemptions from Egypt and from Babylon by the force of the lights and Kelim De'ima, vessels of Ima. But Malchut herself had had no redemption yet in and of herself. This is the rainbow in which only 3 colors shine, white, red, and green, while her black color does not shine, since Malchut is nothing of her own. Instead, she needs to receive from Zeranpin, her husband, who gives her from the lights and Kelim De'ima. But complete redemption means that Malchut herself will be built with her own Kelim and lights, and will no longer need to receive the lights and Kelim De'ima from Zeranpin. As it is written, and the light of the moon will be as the light of the sun. From Vayera, the Lord appeared, unlocking the Zohar. This structure cascaded into reality that revealed a world where the female force was to be dependent on the male force for abundance, for creation. But because we are now advancing towards our purpose to attain spiritual correction, alignment of the level of internal forces within each of us, the physical world is unconsciously transitioning physically in parallel instead of internally. This is why women are receiving more of men's rights in the physical world, and the composition continues to move towards that equality. While these are outward signs in the unconscious attempt to align to the system, it is instead the internality of each person that requires an intention for correction of these two forces within to attain alignment. And here's a quote. 209. Hence it is written that the stars in heaven shine upon the earth. This means that both names, Havaya and Elohim, are as one. This way, Malchut, Elohim, should merge with the name Havaya, Zeir Anpin. The black light, Malchut, with the white light, Zeir Anpin, as one, without distinction. The white cloud by day, Zeir Anpin, with a pillar of fire by night, Malchut. The property of day, Zeir Anpin, merge with the property of night, Malchut, so they shine as one star. 210. This is the sin of the primeval serpent that unites below, it separates above. Hence it caused what it caused to the world. What should be united above should be separated below. The black light, which is Malchut, should be united above with Zeir Anpin into a single whole, and then separated from the evil side, from the fourth commandment, from the Zohar. Similar changes are also occurring in the study environment of those desiring spiritual development. In various cultures, a prevailing long-held belief that deep internal spiritual learning cannot be done with men and women seated together is changing. We see this transition with more men and women who desire to learn together. After initial resistance to this change, just as in any transition, the desire will prevail. The learning landscape is already changing dramatically and will continue in quantity in the coming years as men and women continue to advance together, learning to scrutinize together. They see the primary goal has become reaching internal power independent on each other. Efforts will shift towards becoming aware of how the system is operating within us, instead of feeling burdened to fix the way the world functions outside of us. This means our perceptions will change instead of reality. Our purpose is to reform our perception, and that is what inner correction, the work of aligning the male and female forces within us, is all about. And here's a quote. 2 states of Malchut. Item 88. It is known that in the beginning, the sun and the moon, which are the separate Nukva Malchut and Zeir Anpin, were considered the 2 great lights. The level Nukva was equal to that of Zeir Anpin, and she was as big as him. But then the moon, the Nukva, that is separated from Zeir Anpin, complained and said, 2 kings cannot use the same Keter crown. Then she was told, go diminish yourself. Thus she became the small light. Thus you find 2 states here in Nukva. In the first state, she was with Zeir Anpin, in the state of the 2 great lights equal to Zeir Anpin. The second state is after the Nukva was diminished and became the small light. From the preface to the Sulam commentary by Bala Sulam. Everything in reality must exist with opposites, right and left, male and female, plus and minus, giving and receiving. The qualities in each are equivalent in importance and necessary in order to operate as a balanced system. The adjustment of the level of each opposing force occurs with the mingling of 2 or more. This give and take, receiving, due to the intention to increase internal power, desire for alignment with the system, allows a clear flow from the system, i.e. alignment. And the first question, why is the world changing towards equality of men and women? Caesar.
This in this generation, all these qualities, are mixed, in each other, man and woman, So both are becoming, independent, and they have different desires about life. One want to do something, go, go high in, in professional, so you got different ideas of how, to manage your life, So these qualities, be dependent on these qualities inside. So we start to be becoming dependent of these qualities, inside of each other. So in stereo or outside. So that's the way I think.
Moshe.
Right. Well, just like in spirituality, just like we read, it's, there's a roots and branches, so we can see how it's manifesting in reality today, how women are becoming more equal and just as needed as they are in spirituality, that the Malchut is supposed to rise on its own. And in the same way here, the the women are, you know, gaining that equality where before they were suppressed. Of course, it's, you know, it's about, but it's about using these two forces together rather than standing alone. So it's not like, you know, we're looking as sort of an inequality of like, okay, you know, you're equal and I don't need you anymore. It's rather it's more of like we're equal and we could use each other together.
Robin.
Well, in spirituality, the separation before, I guess, long before they had separated, the woman was diminished in Malkut, in light, and so on. But now we're moving into the end and reformation and correction of that, and it's manifesting in the physical world, so that women are getting back their light, and the men and women are meant to function together in equality and interdependence, but dependent.
We're definitely transitioning to this point where instead of, you know, giver, receiver, slave, master, men, women, we're reaching this equality when a woman says, I don't need a man, she's saying, I need a man, but internally instead of externally. I can raise those qualities within me, and then I don't need an external man to deal with those qualities. So we can see why the world is reaching that equality, since men are finding those female qualities within them, and women are finding those male qualities within them. Second question, why is it important for men and women to learn together? Caesar.
If they keep the same page, you know, it's going to be easy to for both of them, you know, so they can reach there's a internal power, you know, so they and in the same time they have the perception, you know, grow in the same way. So that's it. I think that's it. Thanks. Okay.
Moshe.
Well, just like any other reason why we have to learn with other people, is just to mingle our perceptions and to get a higher perception together, because you'll never see everything through your own eyes. You have to see it through others' eyes as well. And working with women just gives you a whole other element that, you know, that you wouldn't see before.
Robin.
Well, we all have the two forces within us, male and female, regardless of our gender. And by women and men working or learning together, those forces are stimulated in both sides, both genders, and it helps to grow and equalize.
There are two sides to the coin. On one hand, men and women have the same spiritual path, so there shouldn't be a reason why they shouldn't be learning together. And then the advantage of learning together is that women have fresh perspectives and have a different point of view on things that really raise the degree of discernment than just a male-only group. And the third question, how do we make this transition as smooth as possible? Caesar.
You know, I think they by working together, you know, being a partner, you know, and scrutinize and you know, go by the method, you know, and keep always, you know, focusing in the goal, you know, that's the most important thing, you know. So if they have, I mean, if if you keep going this with the goal in your mind, so you can slowly shift for this kind of working.
Moshe.
Well, I think it's about educating people, about having people understand the benefits of being around women, and how they can basically give us a different perspectives as well, and being open to that. I mean, there's a lot of stigmas attached with women, over the years, right? That they're the weaker gender. But we're seeing more and more, women today, really succeeding in many places where men have succeeded. And I mean, just take a look, right? Hillary Clinton is running for president, and she's, a hair's breadth away from winning, right? So, I mean, it's I think it's just about really education, and I think that's really gonna smooth out this transition.
Robin.
Well, the transition is happening. It's manifesting all over the place. So the way to make it to make it smooth is just accept it and work with it and practice it. I've heard of stories of some that have really been opposed to it, real strong reactions, and it surprises me, but it's happening and it's going to happen, and we just need to practice it. And like Moshe said, education too.
I think the idea is that to understand that it is a transition, that transitions are hard, and by understanding that the transitions are hard, it already makes it easier, because you understand that there's going to be effort, and there's going to be conflict, and there's going to be work to do to make this transition easier. The understanding of what we're dealing with, and definitely through education and understanding the process more, it can help us through this transition much easier and quicker as well. So what do you think of the article?
Great article. But Sakai, it's a dissemination is not phase 2 kind of a work.
Yes. Why are you asking?
How are you gonna implement, gonna go smooth this process, to see men and women working together, and the whole society,
Well, the transition is going to happen whether we like it or not. So it's up to the individuals to make it easier for them. So it's not that, if we don't do education, then the transition won't happen. The transition is happening anyway. The ego is growing within the woman, and she's, taking back things that before she would, allow the men to take for granted. So that's going to happen whether, people like it or not. So it's up to the individual to, learn about this process to make it easier for him. So the making it easier is not for the transition itself, it's for the people going through that transition.
So you think in the future, you see people, going straight to, to system concepts, not just, not going to, phase 2, just go straight to phase 3. Or to system concept, I mean.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
I really like the quotes. They seem most of them to come from the Zohar. I think there's one that I didn't understand at all, but I can't remember which it is. But they all indicated this internal process, and I thought that was just really fascinating.
Which quote? So let's look at them and you can tell me which quote. Is it this one? was the other one? Is it this quote or is it this quote?
I think it was near the beginning.
This is Talmud Sefirot quote. So if we go over the quotes, this is the first quote of Talmud Sefirot. Then we've got the quote of the Zohar.
This one, the first one.
So that's Talmud Sefirot.
Yes, that had the terms shefa and.
So I can read it with the translation. So you've got number 5, Zeir Anpin, which is small face, and Malchut, kingdom, are called two lights, since they bestow upon the lower Olamot worlds. It is so because the Tachtonim, lower ones, cannot receive from Gar, the upper three, Keter, crown, Chochmah, wisdom, and Bina, understanding. Consequently, only Zeir Anpin, small face, and Malchut, kingdom, shine upon the Tachtonim, lower ones, and are therefore called lights. When emanated, they were on the same level. It means that Malchut, kingdom, received her Shefa, abundance, from Bina, understanding, not through Zeir Anpin, small face. Thus they were both equal. Just as Zeir Anpin, small face, was emanated from Bina, understanding, and received his Shefa, abundance, from Bina, understanding, so Nukva, female, received her Shefa, abundance, from Bina, understanding. However, when Malchut, kingdom, is not fitting to receive from Bina, understanding, but through Zeir Anpin, small face, she is then considered to be lower than Zeir Anpin, small face, for the receiver is naturally below the giver.
I didn't know what the terms Tachtonim and shefa meant. I'd forgotten. So that really explains it. That helps. Thank you.
Can we say here is Tachtonim in this particular case? Because it's not talking about Zeir Anpin and Malchut here as the Tachtonim. So what's the Tachtonim here?
So this whole concept is talking about where you've got Atzilut, the world of Atzilut. And then the Tachtonim is Bia, below the parsa.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the first paragraph here. It is so because the Tachtonim cannot receive from Gal, Keta Chochmah, and Bina. So I'm assuming that's Atzilut part, right?
Exactly.
And then consequently, only Zeir Anpin and Malchut shine upon the Tachtonim and are therefore called lights.
So the idea is that Bia deals sort of its manager is only through the Achab of the Gagal Tanam. It's only through the soul of Atzilut.
Well, it's saying here that Zeir Anpin and Malchut is the Achab of the Gagal Tanam of
exactly.
And it's shining upon the Tachtonim. Oh, right, of Atzilut. And it's shining upon the Tachtonim and are therefore called lights.
Which is the intention. It's like half the soul, the intention, and the action.
Yeah, it's shining on the intention and action.
Exactly. Basically shining on reality.
On the Achab. Yeah, the full Achab. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I like this quote a lot. First of all, well, I like that it says it means this is one emanated, I guess, on the top part, the GE there, and that's it. It means that Malchut received her shefa from Bina, not to Zeir Anpin. But but then it says if it's not fitting to receive from Bina, but through Zeir Anpin. So what's the condition of where it's receiving through Zeir Anpin, and the other condition is where it's receiving from Bina?
So the idea is that if we talk about it practically, if a person is in the state of when the lights are equal, he's in a state where the person is in his GE. That means he feels the controller part, and he feels a situation of control. He's like, I control the situation. Everything is going very nicely. Then what happens is he can go through a state where he suddenly feels a loss of power. And why does he feel that loss of power? Because he's fallen into a chab. What does that mean? That is the idea that the Malchut that beforehand was sort of receiving from the GE, that is receiving from the controller part, diminished itself. Why did it have to diminish itself? By diminishing itself, it means that the soul, you can't deal with the G anymore. You have to get your sustenance from the Achab. So, for example, let's say someone, you haven't reached end of correction, and they're in a situation, they're at work, and they're feeling very confident, and they feel the creator within them, they feel the control, and then suddenly they feel worthless. Things aren't going well for them. They've lost their power and they don't know what to do anymore. So what's basically happened there is, because the soul has two parts. So you've got the soul, which is the achap of the GE, and then you've got the soul, which sort of falls into the achap itself. And that's the idea of the soul, which is basically that the malchut, the soul has to diminish itself, which means it has to go down and deal with the intention and the action and do a correction there. And when the correction is done, that is, the person has sort of, let's say, sorted out their finances or sorted out their situation at work, then once they have that stability, then they can go back up to the GE and they can do expression again. So well, situation where someone's in expression, they fall because they don't have their corporeal, you could say, situation in sort of in control. Once they sort of set their corporeal situation in control, then they can return to a situation where they can actually do expression in situations because it's not dragging them down anymore.
Well, then that says is that anytime you have some lack, like, for a job or for a woman or, whatever, and you don't have those sort of, lacks met, then that's what you're saying is that the soul is going down there and it's preventing you from doing expression.
Exactly.
That's not a good thing.
Well, yes, so the idea is to avoid the situation. The idea is it's called to keep the parsa active, which means to understand that my corporeal situation has got nothing to do with my spiritual situation. There's my corporeal, let's say, for example, whether I'm successful at work, whether I've made this great business or not, it's got nothing to do with the creator within me. And if you don't keep that separation, then you can fall into like saying, oh, I'm worthless, I'm nothing because I don't have a successful business or I've got my finances in order.
Yeah, okay, fine. I can understand the separation that you need to have between spirituality and corporality. But if the person feels in his achap, he feels lacks for certain things, maybe it might not drag him down and it doesn't feel like, it sort of breaks his internality of who he is and all that, but yet his body still feels a lack, just like a body might feel pain.
Well, that's fine, but then he can deal with it with his soul still being in the gene.
But is he still able to use expression in this particular?
Exactly, he can do expression because he didn't fall into the lack. He didn't fall into the deficiency.
How do you know if he fell into the lack or not?
What?
How do you know if he fell into the lack or not?
Well, because if he can't do expression, if he's not in a sense of power, of control, if he's in a situation of deficiency, if he's feeling the pain, then he can't do expression. You can only do expression if you're in the sense of self as the creator, as you're controlling your situation. Only then can you do expression, because expression is always top down and alignment is always bottom up. So if you're the creator, you're aligned. You don't need to work on alignment. And then you can actually work on expression. You're like, I'm giving to the low ones. Remember, the goal of creation is to do expression, as it says, to give to the creatures. It's to give to the creatures from the perspective of the creator. So when you're in the perspective of the creator, then you can bestow to your achap, you can bestow to you as a creature. But if you've fallen and your soul has to now get its sustenance from below the parasa, which means it becomes it's called the crown of Beriah, then it has to deal with the intention and action and sort of like save itself while still feeling the pain and the tension of the situation. Instead, and then he can't do expression. Instead of, if he was able to stay in the G or restore himself to the G, then he could actually do expression. So his body might feel the tension, but his sense of self is still in the creator. I'm in control. That's the idea that's the idea of the future. Like, we're not talking about time here. It's talking about state. So the idea is in the future, it means that when the person returns to his GE, then he can get the sustenance from Bina, which means he can get it from the head of Atzilut, which is the head of the controller, instead of having to get it from the head of the Achab, which is the head of the controlled situation.
And Zakai, it is a transition. towards the point where man and woman will desire to learn together. So this first we will start from external direction, or not, or by some kind of growing perception. What's
So,
gonna be?
so in both
It's gonna
situations,
be push external first.
so in both situations, you're going to be talking. You're going to be doing external changes, but we're talking here about the perception of the person. Whereas the person in a situation where they're controlling the situation, and because they're controlling the situation, anything they do, either in corporeality or in expression, will be just like very straight and focused, or have they fallen with their sense of self back into the echad, and then they're sort of struggling. So it's not like with breaking the vessels where you actually fall. This is where it's like they haven't really fallen, but they feel that tension as if they've fallen. So they know they've fallen, right? So it's not complete fall, because if you completely fall, you don't even know you're fallen, which is normally what we call a shell. So they feel that tug and pull. That means they feel that they know that their rightful place is to be in Atzilut, but they feel that they had to diminish themselves and become the head of Bria, which means below the parsa. So they feel that their rightful place is above, just like a woman feels her rightful place is to be equal to the man. That is already progress. In the past, women didn't even feel an inclination, they didn't even feel a need to become men. They felt that women, men. But now that the woman has realized that her rightful place is equal with the man, she's feeling the deficiency. Wait a second, but I'm not in that situation. And then she's walking towards that situation.
So they feel that because they will create equal, right? Man and woman, right?
Yeah,
so
men and women, exactly. Those qualities were created equal. Then in equal, you need both those qualities within you. They serve a purpose, each of them, and they have equality in serving a purpose. Of course, there's differences between the qualities, but the idea is that the person can know when to use the qualities within him, and that means independent on each other. You're independent on the qualities within you.
So this transition being a larger number, I mean the entire human species, now you'll be going through these changes, or just a small part of
What will all women become men? We're talking here about qualities, right? We're talking about rights. So yes, there will be a point where men and women will have equal rights. Just like you can also see that men are starting to get women's rights as well, right? Like there's places where men can take paternity leave, for example, which was unheard of before, and only the woman would get paternity leave. So the idea is that there's also rights of men that are getting from women because they are more involved in those situations.
So in what way this is going to change society? As it's like let's say if we don't change internally, it's going to be external change. So it's just going to be change the rules of a society. Now, before was man on the top of not then it's going to be human. I don't know.
Well, the idea is that there'll be changes both internally and externally. So there needs to be understanding of the qualities and understanding how to deal with those qualities within you. And of course, there also needs to be equal rights in externality as well.
Okay, I see.
By the way, that whole story is also the story of do you want to be the tail of a lion or the head of the fox? So the tail of the lion is Malchut Atzilut, and the head of the fox is the Keter of Bria. All right, I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.